good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for Bulletin training. I'm Jen at Lincoln, the Bulletin editor. As I mentioned in the invitation, this session will primarily be a demo of the CourseLeaf software that is used to manage the Bulletin. This software is developed by Leepfrog, and we have a trainer from Leepfrog, Anna O'Neill, who's going to be providing the demo. There are other videos and information about the Bulletin on the user guide website, and I'll be posting the recording of today's training there as well in the coming days, and I'll send a link to that when that's available. This training session will go over the most common things you'll encounter when editing your Bulletin page, including opening different sections of your page, managing different types of formatting and tables, and moving your pages forward in the workflow. Everyone should currently be muted, but please unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can ask your question in the chat, which I'll keep an eye on and respond to things over there as we go. So I will go ahead and turn things over to Anna, and we'll get started with the demo. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen. As Jen said, my name is Anna. I am a software trainer here at Leepfrog, or you might see CourseLeaf. Leepfrog is the company, CourseLeaf is the software. So if you see either of those, that's us. And I am here to help you learn kind of about the software. We'll start with kind of the basics. We'll go into a demo of how you can start editing your own stuff. So if you haven't been there before and you need the link for where you can edit your catalog or bulletin is this next bulletin.wustl.edu. All right. So if you need that, you can go there, bookmark it or whatever. If you need to come back to it, but you don't remember what that link is, feel free to bookmark that in your browser for ease of use in the future. Once you get there, you'll be asked to sign in using your Washington EU credentials. So you all have access to it through your school accounts. You don't need like a separate Leepfrog or CourseLeaf account. Alrighty, so today's training, our goal is that you understand the functions of some toolbars on our site. There's one across the top, one across the bottom, and that you feel comfortable making edits to your pages. It'll feel a lot like Microsoft Word, so hopefully a lot of it'll be intuitive. There might be a few different things, though, that you haven't seen before. All right. And to do that, I do not know why whoever created the animation for this slide put number 1 as the third thing to show up, but I'm going to go back and edit that. First, we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of your catalog or bulletin being in this format. Go through the basics. We'll train you on the software, go over a few resources, and then if there's time, we can do some questions afterward, and Jen can close us up if she has anything to add at the end there. All right, so the benefits of having CAT, which is the name of the software through which you're able to edit your bulletin, is that it is accessible on any browser, Firefox, Chrome, any of those guys. And for students especially who are trying to find information about which courses or programs they might be interested in, it is compatible for your desktop, your laptop, your tablets, and for the students, their phones. It shouldn't be too hard for them to access whatever information they're trying to access on their phone. Another benefit is that there are tools to help us make sure that our sites are ADA compliant. So there are some accessibility features that we really want to make sure students who are using assistive devices or other stakeholders who are using assistive devices might use. There are ways we can make our websites compatible with those. All right. It is easy to use. It's easy to search and find what you need. And it's even easy to edit. So we'll get into some of these terms for editing and that sort of stuff here. All right, so a page owner might be any of you who are going to start making edits on a catalog or bulletin page. The owner is really the first individual or a group of individuals that have that ability to first start changing something on that page. You also might hear the word page editor or initiator. All of those just mean the first person making any changes. After the first person makes those edits or changes, that person will then click that bright green Start Workflow button. That then will start an approval process. This start workflow button is kind of like your turn it in process. So if you imagine the bulletin kind of as a group project, the first person to work on the group project is that owner. They're going to turn it in to the next person who does their task. They're going to turn it to the next person in workflow, etc. All right. So workflow is what we call the approval process. Workflow is just the flow of approval to make sure that these pages then get put on a live site. So you might have noticed that that URL says next bulletin. That next is that editing environment, meaning that you're not going to be making changes right now on this website that are automatically going to be put on your live site for students to be able to see. Normally in our next environment, we're working on the next edition of the catalog. Then we have time for these edits to go through that workflow process. Once it hits all approvers, then it's published to that live site later. So if you're kind of feeling timid about software and how to use it, don't worry, any changes you make will be reviewed by someone else and they won't be posted immediately live to the site. So you're not gonna like break anything. All right. So like we just said, the next environment is kind of like a preview environment. So they have to be approved before publishing. Your live catalog actually has a different URL. So your live catalog is accessible by students or anyone who has access to your catalog. And that live catalog is only going to be editable by admin. So if you are an admin within CourseLeaf product and you have the ability to edit it there, you could, but for our purposes today, we're really focusing on this next catalog where we're editing the next edition of our catalog, or as you say, bulletin. All right. So what happens after that first person submits the page to workflow, plus it presses that bright green start workflow button? That next person or the next role, might be a group of people, in that approval process is going to get a notification email. Pretty simple. They'll have an email that'll have a link on there. That link will say, hey, go here and there's something you need to review. You can either approve it, meaning everything looks good. You press approve, it goes on to the next step. Or that person can roll it back. So if they think, there are some edits that need to be made still on this page, but I'm not the person that needs to make these edits, I'm going to push it back to the person before me, or maybe the first person, anyone in the process before, and they'll have to leave you a little comment. Hopefully it's something more useful than like, this is a bad idea or something. And they can give you some kind of guidance on what they're expecting to see in that next edit. That person could also just edit it themselves and then push it on through. So if there's, some spelling, or maybe you guys want to use the Oxford comma, but you didn't use the Oxford comma or something like that, they can make small changes like that, edit it, and go ahead and push it on through the approval process. All right, so any approver is going to be able to do those three things. So if you're wondering after you submit your work, what happens to it, that's what's happening. All righty. Oh, there's some text I didn't realize was animated. Okay. All right, so for Washington U, I have gotten word from Jen that your catalog edits or bulletin edits should be completed by February 28th. This is not a CourseLeaf thing or a Leepfrog thing. This is an institutional thing. Jen, did you have any notes or anything on what exactly should be done by then? Or is that just the hard and fast deadline everybody should be done?
So yeah, that's the deadline we like to go for to get your actual page text changes in. Currently, our course descriptions are imported from WooCourseL, and that's a separate process. So if your courses aren't quite up to speed at that point, that's fine. We can work through that. But the text that's going to appear, so like your program requirements, changes to your majors and minors, that kind of stuff, we're hoping to have at least in the workflow by the end of February to start moving through approvals. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen. Beautiful. All righty, so moving right along here, we do have some resources for you if you're going through the pages and you can't remember what some button does or something like that, and you don't want to rewatch this recorded video afterward. You can go and read for yourself. There's some help documentation on some of these sites. The help documentation is all at luc.courseleaf.com. And the relative URL or the page that you'll find most helpful is going to be /help/cat. CAT is the name of the software for the catalog /page-body. And I can send this to you. Actually, let me see if I'm authenticated in. Sometimes I forget to go to the site beforehand. Oh, see, login required. So once you get here, if you're not logged in yet, you'll have to log in with your school's login. But this is kind of what the banner looks like on all of those pages. You can go to that /help/cat/page-body. And I can, now that I'm out of the PowerPoint, let me just go ahead and copy this and put it in the chat for you. It'll send it in image form as well. So just scroll up if you don't want the image, if you want the actual URL. All right, so that's kind of a general overview of what we're going to be talking about today. Any questions before we dive further into the actual software? All right. Well, then let's get to it. Okay, I believe now you can just see my website. All right, so when you go to the catalog, your landing page, the front page of the catalog is going to look like this. You'll know which edition you're editing because it'll have the year on there. Let me make this bigger. Oh, too big. All right. It'll have that year on there. This Washington University in St. Louis here, if I click that, it'll take me out to your institutional site. So that's outside of the catalog. Anything that's going to be in your catalog is going to have that next catalog or next bulletin URL. You'll notice my URL is different. That's because I work for CourseLeaf, so I don't have cool Washington University credentials, so I have to get in a different way. So ignore the base part of my URL, but everything after that .com is going to be the same for you. Okay, so this is the landing page for your catalog. Notice these up here are all hyperlinks for you to be able to go to, and you also have the same ones over here that allow you to navigate either across the top or across the side. So what happens if I click undergraduate? It'll open up all of the URLs that are kind of underneath that URL. If you think of websites like tree, then your base, your trunk is that home page. Now we're on a different branch of that home page and we're going to get on smaller and smaller branches. So you're just editing one of those smaller branches. All right, I've clicked undergraduate. I see everything available to me, all of these smaller branches under the undergraduate page. All right, maybe I'm interested in some majors. So I might click there and I can see a listing of all of the majors that we have in our undergrad school. Another way that I could get to where I'm trying to get to is by just searching in the search bar. If I just type in keywords, it's kind of like Google. It'll find what I'm looking for based on the keywords that I've typed in. It'll first look for if these keywords are in the URL and in titles on that page or headers on that page. Then it'll look for pages where those words I typed in are maybe found within the text of the page. So for example, we see this environmental engineering. We know that's not the same as computer science, but somewhere on this environmental engineering page, computer science is mentioned. All right, so that's how the search works. It finds the most relevant data first. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go into the Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. So I actually already have that URL up here. So let me just type that in. All right, so a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. If I need to know where I'm at in my site, I can follow this horizontal breadcrumb trail here. So this is one accessibility feature just to kind of know how to navigate your way around the site. Another is this right side navigation we see there. And you'll note if I start scrolling down far enough, this little arrow is going to pop up. It allows me to click that and move back up. That's another feature that makes your site more accessible to users. All right. So we have a tab here. I created another tab. So most of your pages that I noticed didn't have multiple tabs on them. Some of them might, some of them won't though. So don't worry if your page only has one tab and you don't actually see differentiated tabs right here. But I just made a training tab so we could kind of see what we're working on today. Before we get into actually editing it, let's just make a few observations in the page that actually exists with your actual information on it. You'll see some text and just plain text. You'll see a hyperlink here. So this will hyperlink out to a different page of engineering degree requirements here. Okay. You'll see these bullet points with that are acting as titles, and we see these kind of tables. We'll talk about making those tables as well. You'll also note that every course you see is also a link, and those links are actually called course bubbles. So anytime I click on a link, those little bubbles will pop up with the course description in them and whatever other information is in our student information system that the bulletin is pulling in from that information system. So here I realize it's kind of small, but here we can see this independent study course. This is the description, max credits 6. We can view individual sections there, etc. So this is kind of just a way to make sure that all of our pages are linked together. We're not referring to any kind of page that doesn't exist or course that doesn't exist. All right. So these are kind of some of the things we are going to talk about today. I'm moving over to my training tab just so I can edit something that's not actually in your bulletin. So if I want to start editing a page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this strange kind of flag-shaped edit page button. And when I click on that, 2 toolbars will open. All right, so we're going to actually go over the bottom first. I can see who I am down here. That's important if you have access to multiple accounts, then you know which pages you should have access to here. But for right now, I'm logged in as my CourseLeaf self. We're going to skip translations because this is not applicable. The page owner I can see here is this role, SEASCSE owner. So anyone in that role can start edits on this page. And then if I click this blue workflow, I'll get a pop out that previews the workflow of all of the steps that my page will go through. So let's make a few observations here before we make more changes, or before we start making our changes. All right. Our page will go through some copy editor information or copy editor steps here. All members that are in this step will get an email. Currently, we can just see that one member is in the step. Okay. If we move along, we see this FYI here. FYI just means that the people in this role will get notified that there has been an edit. Okay, so Bill is going to get information that, hey, something on this computer science page has changed. Someone has submitted it to workflow, just FYI. This next step is also an FYI, so you can see this next person will get a notification. And then the next step we see that requires approval is not just FYI, is the registrar. We see there are 2 people here. If you see 2 people in this workflow, then only one of them has to approve it. Both will get an email, but the first person to go in and approve wins the race. So they get to make the decision on that approval. Okay. So if you get an email and then you go into your approval page and you realize it's not there anymore, it's probably because the other person in your role already approved it. So you might need to send them a little G-chat or whatever you use on your campus. All right. So that's how that works. Anything with FYI is just FYI. Anything without FYI will require approval. Okay, so if you're going to submit something and you want to know who all is going to be looking at your stuff, this is Preview Workflow tool is a good one to use. All right. I can see page status and history here. History will just show me the various versions of this page before now. And page status just shows me, is this new? Is it being edited? Is it in workflow, or is it done? So we'll have a few different statuses we might see down here. It's just to tell us if it's in workflow, I probably won't be able to edit it. If it's done, that means that it's been approved. It's gone all the way through the approval process. And this is the final version of the page. Okay, so that's a real quick rundown on the bottom toolbar. Getting into the editing now. To edit, I can open this top toolbar with this flag and I can click page body. Now, if you are in the software with me, you might notice that I have a lot more buttons up here than you do. Just ignore the buttons I have. Just, pay attention to the buttons you have, because that's what kind of authentication you have in the system is. All right, so you can get there by page body up here, or you can just click on the edit training tab with the pencil over off to the side of what you're trying to edit. All right, so here we are on our training tab. It'll pop open a page body editor, is what we call it. And you'll notice it looks a lot like a word processor. So here we see training is in really big, bold letters. Why is that? Because it has a heading 2. So your institution has a different template than other institutions. Your institution has decided that these are the types of headings that need to exist across your pages to make them uniform across all schools and departments and that sort of thing. So the first heading I'm going to have is probably going to be a heading 2. Heading 1 is this heading on the base of the page. So I can't actually use a heading 1. I only have heading 2 access in this page body editor. So heading 2 is as high as we can go. We have all the way down to 6. It's important for accessibility purposes that you go in order and that you don't skip from like 2 to 5, for example. So if I want to check and make sure that my page is staying accessible, I can go up to this, where is it? Oh, I actually do not see it on the toolbar. Surprising. Well, there is an accessibility report. It might exist on the admin toolbar instead of just this one individual page toolbar. That will give me a report of whether or not my headings are accessible. Important so that when screen readers are going through the page, they know how to communicate what is a heading and what is a new section to the person using an assistive device. All right. So I can type any new content in here, just plain text. Oops. Can be typed in here. I can also copy and paste information in here if I want to. So if I, for example, took some information from a different place, now, would you take it from another catalog page? Probably not, but I'm doing that today just for demo's sake. I can paste it in here. Now, this format looks pretty good because it's coming from your catalog, but if text is coming from a Word document or from another site, you're not going to want to Control V in there like I just did. It's best to choose one of these paste clipboard options up here. You have this regular paste button, and it just makes sure that the font and the font size and all of that is accurate. You have this paste as text only, so plain text. Use that one if you are copying from a website, because there might be some coding in the background applying to your text that's not going to be what's the word? Congruent, I guess, with your site. And then you have this paste from Word. You can use this from Microsoft Word or some word processors, some other word processor, just to make sure that the formatting is translating from Microsoft Word over to your site. So it doesn't mean if I'm pasting from Word, it doesn't mean that it's getting rid of all of the bolding or the bullets or the italics or anything. It just means that it's going to do it correctly into this page body editor. Okay, so that's how we can bring in new text, either type it or paste it into one of these tools. Now, if I wanted to save, I could click this save button and I can see save successful and my page stays open. If I want to exit and see how it's looking on my page, I can click that OK at the bottom and then come back in here and check and make sure it's looking the way I want on the actual page. All right. So you have bullets and numberings just like you do in Microsoft Word. You have special characters here if you need any special characters. All right. You have all of these, superscript and subscript and all these kinds of formatting tools available. Find, replace. You can do all of that just like in any other page editor. Where we're going to focus more is these other tools that are not simply text or that might have something kind of special to them, CourseLeaf specific. So here is the link symbol. You might notice it's the same as like for Outlook or something like that. If I want to make any kind of link that you see down here, I'm going to need to use this link symbol. So if I want to hyperlink to another catalog page, that's considered an internal link because it's on the catalog site. So let's say I want to link to this computer science page. I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL, just the relative URL. I don't need the base URL, just the / after your .edu and on. All right, so I'm going to copy that relative URL, highlight the text I want to link, just like you're making a hyperlink elsewhere, and I'll click OK. All right, once I click OK here, I'll see what my page looks like when it's hyperlinked here. I'm going to test it to make sure it works. Always test it to make sure it works. Yes, it took me out to the the relative URL that I put in there. All right, so check. Internal links, just the relative URL. Now, external links. Those aren't just considered Washington U or not Washington U. Those are considered catalog or not catalog. So external links are any links that are not within the catalog. So like we said, our Washington U landing page is considered an external link. In that case, I'll put this HTTPS and everything in front of it as well. I'll go ahead, highlight the text, copy, paste it in there, just like you would do in Word or something. And I'll see this little box over here, meaning it's going to open in a new window, or I'm sorry, meaning it's going to open an external link. And now I know I have left the catalog. All right, so I'm no longer in the catalog. So this little window just means you're leaving the catalog. Okay, so that's the difference between those links. Next, if you need to put an email link on your site, the way to do that is once again to highlight the text you're going to copy, and you're going to click this link, and all you have to type is mail to : no spaces, nothing else, no periods, nothing like that. And then you'll type the email address. So mail to aoneil@CourseLeaf.com. And then when someone comes across this link, when they click on that link, it'll open up their own mail client to send an email to whoever that email address is linked to. All right, that might be useful if you have like faculty contact information or something like that on your sites. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Don't put your personal stuff up there. All right, so now we're going to talk about making an anchor. An anchor is another kind of link, but you're making a link within the same page. So you can consider it ultra internal. So we don't even need a URL. Let's say that I want this bullet to link down to other content as needed. If I want to create an anchor, I'll go ahead and click in front on the line I want this anchor to exist. And I'm going to just click that anchor button. It'll open up a field where I need I'll see that little anchor symbol, very cute. All right. And then if I want to actually link to that anchor, I'll highlight whatever I'm trying to link. And now I'll see this anchor option pop up. So instead of URL, I'll just click anchor. If I have multiple anchors, I'll choose the correct one here and I'll click OK. And then it shows up as a link, but it keeps us on the same page, taking me directly to this other content as needed. All right. So I realize that was a very quick rundown of a billion different types of links, but I did leave some of this information here, and we are recording the, what is this called, training. It's a Friday afternoon. I'm sorry, my brain is slowly dying out on me here today. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about formatting. All right, formatting text. You'll notice this is a heading 4. We also have the ability to not only make it a heading, but make it a toggle heading. What is a toggle heading? This is a heading that will make everything below it disappear if it is not clicked and reappear if it is clicked. So now we don't see that text down here, but if I click that heading, it opens back up and I see that text. Your institution probably has rules about when to use and when not to use toggle headings. So just make sure that you're doing what's standard for your catalog or bulletin. All righty. For the sake of not having to click this every single time I go in there, I'm going to go ahead and remove the toggle heading. We're going to make it normal text first. All right, there we no. We're going to remove the numbers and we're going to make it a regular heading for now. Now, we might be tempted, since we're used to making outlines and all sorts of things, to make bold be a heading. Once again, it's important to make sure that your headings are formatted as headings, not just as bold, because if they're bold, then your assistive devices won't recognize them as headings. They'll just recognize them as emphasized text. And if you're wanting someone to understand how things are grouped, that type of discourse organization is really important in understanding language. So recommended, use the headings when you can. We can italicize, underline, etc. as needed. All right. So that's kind of all the text editing stuff. We're going to get into more of tables and how to edit some other tools in our catalog today. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is course lists. Course lists are pretty common, and it's what we see on this first tab here. We see computer science core requirements, and we see this table right here. We also see a footnote here. We're going to talk about creating footnotes for these tables as well. All right, so if you need to make a list of all the courses in your subject or in your department or whatever, sorry, I hadn't gotten there yet. The first thing you'll do is you'll go up to this button right here. Looks like 6 squares. Some of my clients just call it the 6 square button. It is also the insert formatted table button. And when I click that, I'll see a pop-up with a list of a bunch of different items that I could choose from. We're going to stick with course list right now. We're going to click OK. Once I've done that, I see this kind of double-sided box open up with a few options. Now, it's all blank, but I want to know what courses I can pull from, what courses have come in from my student information system. To know that, I'm going to need to be in the school that has these courses I want and the department that has these courses I want. So maybe my computer science people need some general engineering courses, we'll say. And we want to say, this is a list of all the general engineering courses, for example. I will choose that department and I will see a list of all of the courses available for me to choose from. Now they're on the left side. That means I haven't chosen them yet. To choose them and put them into the table, I need to move them to the right. To do that, I can either just double click or I can highlight it. Just click once and then double arrow it over. Or if I'm really savvy with my course codes and I don't feel like populating all of these with the different school and the different department, I can go down in here and actually type my course code. Let me see if it'll show up this way. And if I click add course, it should add it over here as well. So that's that quick add field. If you know all the course codes off the top of your head, that'll be useful for you. Not as useful for me since I'm not as familiar with your course codes. All right. So we'll see all of those populate over here on the right. Let's see what that looks like. Just set up as a course list. All right. So obviously this probably isn't an entire semester for your students maybe, but all of this information has populated in different shadings in your course list. Let's talk about well-formed course lists. Well-formed course lists are going to be important for people's understanding of course lists, once again, for accessibility purposes and all of that. So if we want to make our hours add up at the bottom of this list, for example, obviously this is a silly example because we only have 3 hours down there, but bear with me. We can add those up here and I can see total units at the bottom simply by clicking this sum hours button in the upper right hand corner. All right. Now I'm going to choose a few other courses here and just kind of throw them over to the right, not because I'm very familiar with all of your courses, but because I want to see what happens when I add some other courses here from a different department. We can see the courses coming from a different department, but we're putting it in the same group and the credits are adding up there as well. Now, if I notice, for example, that these credits aren't necessarily accurate, like this 0 is probably a variable credit course, computer science department seminar, I don't know. If it is a variable credit course, you can go into this units fields and you can type your credits. So let's say it's good for 1 to 4, and then we'll see this sum over here. Now, your catalog is smart enough to know that I am a liar. and that the credits for this course are not 1 to 4. So if this information is not accurate according to your student information system, it'll tell you with a red box. And it says, hey, you don't actually know what these credits should be. Take another look at that. It literally tells you how many units it should be. All right, so I was wrong in my assumption that it's worth 0, that it's not worth 0 units. All right, let's say that we want to add a header in here. We want to separate our general engineering from our computer science or our computer engineering courses. All right, if I wanted to do that, I would go to where I want that header to end up in my list, and I could add a comment entry. All right, I could say something like CSE courses, or maybe to make it more legible to my non-internal people, I could say computer science and engineering courses. If I do that, we now see just a plain text line item of that, but it doesn't really look like, you know, a header or something that's kind of standing out as not a class. So I'm going to go back in here and I can make it an area header. Even in our box, we see it show up as bold. An area subheader will do something similar, but the formatting will look different. So you'll use an area header if it's your kind of larger header, subheader if it's a smaller header. Once again, it is going to be important to make sure you use area headers first and subheaders second. Once again, for the same reasons we talked about before, just accessibility and understandability of your site, right? But what that looks like we see here, when I make it an area header, it is now bolded there. I could put it at the top and call it something if I wanted to. I could say, you know, elective courses and list all my elective courses under there, something like that. All right. So that's kind of how we make a course list work for us, putting up lists of our courses. Any questions on that before I move on to something very similar? All righty. I realize it's bad formatting. We've got a course list inside of a bullet, you know. I can tell on my editor that I am not just using plain text because of this blue outlined box. All right, that tells me that I'm using something from this insert formatted table here. So if you ever go in to edit a page and you're like, man, why can't I just edit the text there? It might be because you need to click into this blue box and make edits there. All right. So something similar, a tool that is very similar to course lists is this plan of study grid. It's going to be like our sequence of courses or our suggested sequence of courses. All right. So let's go, I'm assuming, yep, there we go. For you, it's called course plan. All right, and you'll notice it looks almost the same as the last interface we were just looking at, but you have a few different options here. So we have the same School of Engineering and department list here. All right, so once again, maybe I'll choose general engineering here. But we also have year and term over here. This part, the year and term, just help us not have to create individual headings for every year and term that we want to put in a suggested sequence of courses for our students. So here, if I select the first year and I select the fall term, what's going to happen is any course that I pick, so I know, forgive me for the ridiculous, I realize not everyone would take all those classes in their first term. But what would happen is I would then see the first year show up here above all of the courses. And then I would see fall show up here over all of the credit hours for those courses. All right. We automatically see the total summed at the bottom of those. If I want to populate spring, I'll just go in and click spring. It will unpopulate that box, and I will go in. We'll choose a different subject for this semester. We're going to get real technical in our first year in our spring semester. And we're going to choose some 400 level courses because why not? All right. And I can see all of those down there. Those have now populated as spring units. All right. So we see 9 for fall, 12 for spring. If I wanted to add another year, I could do that. Second, third, fourth year. etc., all the way down, giving my students a complete list of everything that we would recommend that they study during their course, during their time with us at our institution. All right, a few other things to note. You might be wondering, okay, that's great and simple if we have like one class, but what if there are options for our students? They could take English or Engineering 120 or 150 or 160, for example. Let's talk about what that would look like. So if they could take 120 or 150, instead of putting 150 here, what I would do is I would move that back over and I would put my course code over here in this OR section. So ENGR space 150. Let's see what happens when I do that. Yeah, wait a second. Where did it go in my list? Hold up. Where did I put it? Oh, here we go. I put it under the wrong one. I put it under 160. Should be under 1. There we go. Sorry, everybody. So, first year foundations for engineers. This is English, or goodness gracious, Engineering 120 or Engineering 150 count for this particular foundations course that I would ask them for them to take. All right. So it looks like at your institution, maybe this is happening when you are using cross listings as well. Jen, could you confirm that for me?
I'm sorry, one more time.
You're fine. When we're talking about OR courses at Washington U, are these also considered for cross lists?
I think so, yeah, in some cases I believe so.
Right, because we have this title that hasn't changed, but then we're having
Right.
120 or 150 here. So I just want to make sure that we're not saying like 150 is the exact same as 120 if it's not. But so this does look like how maybe at your institution OR is more for cross listings than for options of courses. Changes from institution to institution. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we have 120. Let's just make sure. Yeah, we have different course descriptions for them, so they're not necessarily like combining in some weird way or anything like that. But that is how that works, to put multiple courses in one line if you need to, or say, hey, it's not just as simple as one course here, one course there. We could also put another. We could list as many as we want. We would just comma separate them with no space, and I could put the next one E60 ENGR 160 or something like that as well. So we can do that as many times as we need. If I need to put a comment on a row, I can do that. Let's just see what that's going to look like for you. It's not the most beautiful to put a comment on a row. I would recommend just making a header if you need, or a footnote. So if you want it to be kind of a smaller comment, that's not one of those, select one of the following, for example, then let's talk about how to make a footnote. We noticed that comment was not very pleasing to the eye. Let me take that off of there. Instead of making the comment within the table, which does make it kind of messy, I'm going to make a footnote instead. So let's say that this is the first footnote for this table. I'm going to put a number 1 in my footnote field. All right. Underneath, I'm not just going to type like number 1. That's not what I'm going to do, because it's going to be formatted differently as text, but you want it to not stand out quite as much. To create a footnote, I actually go back into this 6 square or formatted table tool, and I go to my footnotes table right here. I click OK. Once again, we have a bunch of blank boxes. So we're going to add a new footnote. You're going to want to click that first. I'm going to type number 1 here because that's what I chose for my table. And then without any numbering or anything, I'm just going to type my text that I want to be my footnote. So this is my very basic footnote. Notice it is in smaller text and kind of harder to stand out than the actual text on our tab. And when we get down there, we can see the footnote kind of matches the format of the table. If I had multiple, we would see that tab delineation between the number, the footnote, the number, the footnote, the number, the footnote. So that's why it's a table instead of just plain text. Okay. So that's how we can create a comment. Notice this is much prettier here, this one, and then the comment below, than just the word comment or whatever you're putting beside there. Obviously, you can put a comment there. I'm sure there's a way to do it more beautifully than I did it for you. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to look at, you have on these program pages, these types of lists that we talked about, but on your pages that are kind of higher than that, your department pages, you have what we call a sitemap. So if I go to, wait, where is it? Majors, sorry. If I go to this other tab, I see all of these links here. One way to do it is to just create a hyperlink that we talked about in the text for every single page, but there's a much easier way to do it as well. So let me go back to the page we were on, just so I'm not editing anything undesirable. And I'll show you kind of how to create one of those sets of links. All right, so, oops, let me make sure I do it correctly. Sitemap. A sitemap is essentially just taking links from every page that's beneath the URL that you're currently in. So if you're trying to get all those smaller branches in there, we need to make sure we put the URL of the bigger branch that holds all of those smaller branches in there. All right. So maybe it is a program list like the one we saw, that list of majors, something like that. If I click sitemap here, it's going to ask me which URL do you want to start this sitemap from. All right, so I can do my / undergraduate engineering. Let's click on that. And it'll show us a list of all of the URLs we have in our bulletin that align with what I just typed. And if I type on computer, or if I click on computer science, then I can choose my options here. If it's based on page options, it's going to be a little bit different. Based on navigation, it'll be different. So you can kind of play around and see with what pages it gives you based on whether you're using the site navigation or the options for the pages that come below this URL. We could sort it alphabetically if we wanted to. I tend to like that because it makes it easy for my brain. So here we go. Now I can see every single page that falls under the undergrad computer science page. So this BS in computer science is one of them, but we're also seeing BS in business and computer science, BS in computer engineering, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing all of these programs that fall underneath that URL. All right. Basically, we're just capturing the locations of all those other things to put them in one spot. The last thing that I want to show you today before I leave you, and then you don't have to listen to me talk fast any longer. The last thing I wanted to show you is this on this page navigation. This is going to be helpful if you have a page that has a lot of content and you're not wanting people to have to scroll through it, or you're not wanting to just set a ton of anchors on the page and anchor to that particular content there. Maybe you just want to provide, it's kind of like a dynamic table of contents of that page where people can see, oh, these are all the things on this page. Let me just click through those things and see what part of the page I need to be at. To do that, this is called on this page navigation. All right, so as a reminder, this one was all of the navigation on the smaller branches than the page we're on. This one is navigation only on our particular page. Okay. On this page navigation, it's the same 6 square button. If you're ever like, where do I find this? Just click the 6 squares and you're probably going to find it there. We're going to go to on this page navigation, click OK, and then it's going to give me some options. Notice that it's linking the headers that I have put in my page. It's not going to link the bold. So if I just use bold text that's not a header, it's not going to show up as something that's clickable. If you've ever done this in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, it's a similar process. Say I only want headers 2 and 3, but I don't want headers 4 to show up on this list. I can do that. I don't want it to show on the overview tab. I want it to show on my particular tab for today. And no tab name for today. Let's just, I don't want to sort alphabetically either because I want it to be in the order that the page is in. We'll click OK. We'll see all of these settings I just created. We'll click OK one more time. And at the top of our page, we'll see on this page, items for today's training. and we'll be able to click to any of those sections, formatting text or other content as needed. So that's a way to create a lot of anchors at one time. You don't have to go through and link all those things. Just make sure there's a heading on the section that you're working on and it'll link to it. The final notes about this is that then if I want to view what my page looks like in PDF form, so maybe something I'll send to someone or something students can access, something that can be accessed in the future as well once our catalog is archived, I can just go to this view PDF and I can see a very nicely laid out PDF of everything that's in this particular URL. So this first thing we see is the first tab that I created with all of those tables that were already there. This second thing is the second tab, the actual tab that I created with our particular heading. So you can note that it's important to see the heading is going to be different than, for example, just bolded style. Not to pick on the page, I'm not trying to pick on anybody or anything, but the heading will look different than bolded bullets, right? We have our sitemap. That heading is also standard in our template. Looks pretty good, right? So we're able to just kind of read easily a little bit more of where we are. What did my mouse just click on or click out of? I don't know. All right, so just to show you one more piece here, it is set to be in 2 columns. Our bulletin admin are the ones who determine how this kind of shows up. Is it 1 column, 2 columns, that sort of thing. But it works very well when you are seeing these headings kind of in action. All right. So
I was just gonna mention real quick too, I do think looking at the PDFs is a really helpful way for issues to jump out at you when you can kind of look at everything
yep,
in a page layout. I've definitely noticed things I didn't notice when looking just in
sure.
CourseLeaf. And we do put together essentially a print version that we archive every year. We just have a couple copies printed for archives, but anyway, it's a helpful tool.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I love the PDF tool. It's really cool. It's like it just does it for me. I don't even have to do anything. But yeah, so if you're looking for formatting, go to the view PDF. It'll help you out there. All righty. One maybe other important thing to note is that when you need any assistance, that help site I talked about earlier is right here. So if you open this top toolbar, you'll just see this help bubble. You can go right there and it will automatically open the help site for you. If you go to LilyPad U, that is the site we saw earlier that I need to log into to authenticate into, but that is the help site. So if you don't have that URL, don't worry. You can just go up to your top toolbar, click that question mark, and it'll take you right to the help page for the actual page that you're on. So it's not just a general help page, it is a page that should apply to what you're actually trying to do. All righty. So I know there's a lot of talking. We have a few minutes left. Questions, comments, concerns that I can help out with before I let y'all go about the rest of your day?
I guess not. Everybody's quiet today.
Where it's a quiet day, and I did just like talk at everyone for an hour straight. So I realize it's not easy to sit through like an hour of computer talk. Feel free to reach out to Jen if you need anything, if you have any questions, and if she can't answer or needs to reach out to CourseLeaf, she would be reaching out to me or one of my colleagues in the training department. So we're here for you if you need. Jen,
Yes,
any
absolutely.
closing notes?
I don't think so. I appreciate you so much. That was really comprehensive and
Oh,
helpful.
we
Um,
went.
and yeah, as she said, please, please email or call me anytime as you're working through your pages so we can address a problem together, or through Microsoft Teams. And thanks again for making time to attend today.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.